I know what it feels like to face retaliation for standing up for your beliefs. Ironically, I was on the front page of the Huntsville Times fighting for our members the day I was fired.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So, Adam, this week was an important anniversary for you in your labor movement journey, right?
It was, yeah. There's a lot of news to get to today, obviously, but yeah, I wanted to start off today on a personal note. I think it can be helpful to know someone's story if you're going to work together for positive change. And if you've chosen to spend some of your valuable time listening to this show, when you could be doing any number of things, I'd like to think that we are connected on some level by a shared concern for the state of our people and the state of our society, and maybe a shared demand for a future that we can really believe in. So this week did mark 5 years since I was fired by the AEA, the Alabama Education Association, where I'd spent over 5 years representing the employees of Huntsville City Schools. And to be honest, I didn't think I'd get that job. I was only 25 at the time. I'd only been teaching a few years, but there weren't many educators, especially non-tenured ones in this area, who were trying to organize and speak up and fight back against the budget cuts and the corporate-style reform and privatization that we were facing. I started teaching in 2012, which you labor folks out there may recall was the same year the Chicago Teachers Union went on their really epic strike for the school Chicago students deserved. And that really helped me because it helped me see the potential power we had if we blended workplace organizing, community coalition building, and political advocacy. And so that really inspired me, and it got me thinking here in Huntsville, Alabama. I looked around at all the issues that me and my coworkers were facing and the issues my students and their families were facing. And I wondered who was going to say something, who was going to do something? If not now, then when? And if not us, then who? So I said, damn it, I guess I will. And I got active. And I didn't really know what I was doing. And I didn't grow up around unions or organizing, very far from it, really. But I was reading a lot. I was trying to teach myself how to make change and trying to connect with people who I thought could help. And I already knew at that time that AEA shied away from being a real labor union and opted for the quote-unquote professional organization approach. But it was the closest thing that I had as a young educator, and it's where the workers were already at, and so that's where I went. And when that field staff job at AEA opened up, some folks encouraged me to apply. I wasn't their first choice, but I was the one who ended up getting hired. And so I walked out of the classroom, and the very next week, I was in the superintendent's office representing some of our 1,500 or so members. And shortly after that, I was on the front page of the Huntsville Times calling out the administration of crooked Casey Rudensky for their mistreatment of employees. And man, was it on from there. Turns out they don't really appreciate that when you call them out in the newspaper. And that was a learning experience. And so, I won some fights, lost plenty more, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about advocacy, coalitions in the community, working with media, organizing, representation, how to win without collective bargaining or formal union rights. And I also learned about, the contradictions and the difficulties of being a rank-and-file reformer at heart who takes a staff job, rightly or wrongly, thinking they can make a difference. And I know there are folks listening out there who, have had similar experiences. So I got to cut my teeth in organizing by fighting a billionaire-backed boss who, I must admit, he did earn my begrudging respect for his sheer creativity in wrongdoing, who, by the way, resigned mired in controversy with less than 48 hours notice, days after our opposition movement flipped both of the school board seats up for election. So that was huge. We upset the entire local business establishment. But I also learned how we failed to secure and capitalize on that victory, as well as how jokers like him, so often fail upwards. because this corporate bully in particular went on to work for the first Trump administration, though he did get his butt kicked in 2022 when he ran for Congress. And of course, throughout all of this experience, I learned some of the messy side of politics. But during my time on staff with the AEA, I got very involved with our staff union, an affiliate of the National Staff Organization, or NSO, the union for employees of the National Education Association and its affiliates throughout the country. And this was cool for me because it allowed me to learn more about private sector unions, collective bargaining, the NLRB, and all that kind of thing. But I also learned how that kind of workplace activism can come with consequences. I know what it feels like to face retaliation for standing up for your beliefs. I know what it's like to be blacklisted from an industry you love. After all, I went to college to be a high school history teacher, but as you can imagine, there were no school districts around here in this climate interested in hiring a militant labor agitator and well-documented troublemaker to go teach their children social studies. And believe me, I did try. I put in dozens and dozens of applications. Ironically, I was on the front page of the Huntsville Times fighting for our members the day I was fired. The night before, we'd packed the school board meeting, and the school board president had actually asked to meet with me and all but begged me to call off the dogs. Right? We had cranked up the heat, and it was starting to work. This was in the middle of the pandemic. This was fall 2020, and the educators were as upset as I'd ever seen them. There were more issues, more complaints, more calls than I'd ever received. And we were starting to gain steam. And I felt like we really had the potential to extract some real wins for the workers. But, unfortunately, all that organizing came to a halt when I was fired. And, it's not that I didn't see it coming. I wanted to be a labor organizer, and they wanted an insurance salesman. So it was never going to work, and I was miserable. But my union did defend me, and I was grateful to have a union to defend me. The National Staff Organization's VP of Defense at the time, Mike Boyer, he came all the way from the other side of the country to represent me at arbitration. It was the kind of takedown I'd seen happen to other workers, where your management just throws everything against the wall to see what will stick, no matter how silly some of it may be. And frankly, Mike wiped the floor with management's attorney. And to my complete lack of surprise, we also confirmed in the hearing that AEA management was in cahoots with Huntsville City Schools management to shut me up. But we still lost anyway, right? And as too many workers know, these legalistic processes are, they're better than nothing, but they're far from an assurance of justice.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
It was a tough stretch after that. I had to cash in all my retirement. I was doing whatever odd jobs I could, whatever I could find. Substitute teaching, in some cases, literally shoveling crap. But it was my relationships in the movement that kept me afloat. From those odd jobs from the friends to getting plugged into the local stagehands union, IATSE 900. And I didn't even know what a stagehand was. I told them up front, I could barely hold a wrench, but I could write a hell of a grievance if they needed one of those. And they welcomed me with open arms and showed me the ropes, literally in this case. And around that time, 2 union brothers in the area I'd connected with and really respected, Jacob Morrison and David Story, asked me to join this show, the Valley Labor Report. They were looking for someone to step in for David as a co-host and a co-producer. And I reckon when they made their list of labor activists in North Alabama who were willing to spend every Saturday morning ranting and raving on the airwaves about workers' rights, must not have been a super long list because they called me, but I'm really glad they did because I'm grateful to have this outlet, not only to speak up for working folks, but to make all sorts of connections in the labor movement across the world. We've been able to interview so many amazing people in this project, and it's brought a lot of amazing folks into my life and, allowed me to contribute to the movement in new ways. And we've grown our content, our crew, and our reach over the years, growing this grassroots media project into what is now the largest labor talk show in the South. And I'm really proud of our efforts there. But, by summer a couple years ago, I was down to my last few bucks. I wasn't sure how I was going to pay the next month's bills. And then wouldn't you know it, I was offered 2 jobs on the same day. And even better, I ended up being able to do both. And I'm really grateful that folks gave me a chance. So first I did an organizing fellowship with a really cool organization called Jobs to Move America. They led a successful campaign to win a community benefits agreement, or a CBA, at New Flyer, which is a clean bus manufacturer in Anniston, with over 500 workers there. So I got to help out the early stages of the union campaign with IUE, CWA, got to learn more about new organizing, and that also connected me with Communications Workers of America, which would soon prove very helpful for me. And I am proud to say that those workers did win their union and a really solid first contract. So it was cool to play my own very small part in that important victory for Alabama workers and workers throughout the South, and also to get to experience the power of a CBA in action, which was really a remarkable thing. So I then transitioned into the Northeast Alabama organizer position for Alabama Arise, which is a statewide nonprofit fighting for better policies for the people, especially those marginalized by poverty. And I honestly always hoped I'd land there someday. I'd been a member of Arise for years throughout my time in politics. I always respected the organization and its work. And I quickly learned what a great group of folks are involved, from staff to leadership to the membership involved. Arise is a little different than a lot of policy shops because there is, a membership base, right? It's a membership organization. There's nearly 2,000 individual members and over 150 churches, nonprofits, unions, other organizations that are member groups that have made the choice to join a coalition. And in turn, they get to determine the issue priorities and the board. So, given my union background, this was obviously a model that really appealed to me. And considering what we've already accomplished at Arise over the years, over so many years in service here in Alabama, and what we're still accomplishing, I think there's just a tremendous amount of potential if we grow and strengthen that coalition. So really happy to be doing that work. And it didn't take long after I started at Arise before, coworkers were talking to me and bending my ear. They said they've been thinking about a union for a long time. And since I was like the most union obsessed guy they'd ever met, could I help? And so we became the organizing committee. And within a couple months, we unionized the staff of Alabama Arise with CWA 3908 out of Montgomery. And, given my past and given my precarity, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about all that. But we were met with immediate voluntary recognition. And since then, we've worked collaboratively with the Arise leadership to negotiate our first collective bargaining agreement. And that was a big responsibility, but also a real learning experience to represent my coworkers on the bargaining team and learn from the folks at CWA who've been great to work with as well. And proud to say our bargaining unit has 100% membership. And we hope we've led by example for other nonprofits across the state and across the region. And, I didn't get punished for these efforts. Hell, in fact, I got promoted earlier this year. I'm in a new role called Worker Power Campaign Director. And what I get to do is really build bridges between our policy advocacy, our membership base in the community, and the broader labor movement to try to empower working people who are organizing for better lives here in Alabama, from the workplace to the state house. So as you can imagine, this is right up my alley. It's a great opportunity for me to really, bring my skills and knowledge and relationships towards building more worker power in this state, which desperately, desperately needs it. So, I still work stagehand gigs when I can, and it's really an honor to represent my IATSE 900 siblings at the North Alabama Area Labor Council. And it's really sad to say, but this important institution here, which is the regional AFL-CIO Federation of Local Labor Unions, it had been allowed to go defunct. But since rechartering around 5 years ago, several of us, including you, Whitney, and including, of course, Jacob, we've been able to work together with other folks and really grow this thing from 4 initial affiliated locals to now 12. We're active in all sorts of coalition spaces. We've dipped our toes into Huntsville politics a little bit, and we've talked to everybody from high school students to church congregations in the area. And there's a lot more to be done. We're still very early in the development of this labor council, but really proud of what we've accomplished so far. And again, I see tremendous potential power there because, you know, where else are you going to have cashiers and construction workers and rocket scientists and engineers all coming together in the same place to strategize and organize and collaborate, right? There's a lot of strength in that. You know, if the logic of unions is that there's strength in numbers, that we're stronger as a collective than we are on our own, the same logic applies to our locals, right? The more unions work with other unions, the more we come together and build a union of unions, the stronger we're going to be as a movement. And we know that the businesses do that. Industry does that, right? They come together in chambers and business councils. So our unions do have to do a better job of that kind of work. And, you know, especially here in Alabama, we're far behind in terms of a coherent labor movement with the ecosystem and infrastructure we really need to be successful. So that makes the work we're trying to do, building these local labor councils, so important. And I can't encourage listeners enough to get involved in revitalizing these institutions. If you're already in an affiliated local, or even if you're not a union member and you just want to build out community solidarity and coalition, these are really important institutions. So, you know, I wear a lot of hats in the movement these days, but it's all connected by a desire to see a better world for working people. My daughter and her generation and all those coming after, they are counting on us. I really do have faith that when everyday people unite around our common interests, that we can do amazing things. We have such a rich history in Alabama and beyond of people power bringing positive change. And it's up to all of us to do what we can to win that better world that we deserve. And, you know, sometimes it does seem like a really distant past, but what if we could build a mass working class movement rooted in love, justice, and solidarity for this era, for our era? You know, it's been a tough and weird journey these past 5 years for me, but it's gotten me to where I'm at today, where I do what I'm passionate about with good folks I trust. And what's kept me moving forward isn't just my passion for worker power or my anger at the state of the world or my desire to win. The most important thing has been the people who've had my back, from my wife and family to the many friends and comrades I've made along the way. You know, we the people can't win without collective action, collective organization, and collective power. And you can't do that alone, right? By definition, you just can't. So I want to thank all of you for allowing me this point of personal privilege today. And I want to send my love and solidarity to all the folks that I've had the honor to work alongside with over the years as we've struggled for progress and fought for a better Alabama that is not only possible, but necessary for all of us. And, you know, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing with the folks I'm supposed to be doing it with. And I'm excited to work with even more of y'all to build power for the working class. So, yeah, that was my moment of personal privilege today. And hope I didn't bore everybody too much, but it was an impactful anniversary. And considering the themes of censorship and retaliation and all that we're talking about today, it just sort of made sense for me to share a little bit of my story.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I did have like a follow-up question. Is like, would you do anything differently?
Would I do anything differently? I don't know. You know, I've thought about that a lot. Obviously, I'd like to think that I'm a little bit wiser now with some age and experience. And so I probably would not do everything I've done in the past the same way. That said, this struggle that I've been through, in a way, it got me to where I'm at right now, right? Like, if things had turned out differently, I don't know if I would have had the opportunities I've had over the years. from this show to, the unions that I'm part of and everything else. So, I don't know. I mean, I know it's cliche. People say things happen for a reason, but maybe they do. And like I said, I feel like as hard as it's been in some areas, I've landed on my feet and I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I think.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.
Which side are you on?